These future NHL stars still don't have contracts for this upcoming season. We'll discuss this and much more coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. Hi, I'm your host KC alongside my co-host Mark Pye, and welcome back to Hattrick HQ. But before we get into the video, we just wanted to say that 97% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you enjoy NHL content and are looking for a home for daily NHL content, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of this video, which is, how are these RFAs still not signed? And of course, our first person we're going to talk about here is Trevor Zegras. Obviously, Trevor Zegras has been one of the most fun to watch young stars in the NHL over the past couple of years. As we take a look at his stats here, he had 65 points last year and 61 points the year before. And we'll take a look here at what The Athletic has to say about Zegras. Obviously, he has a lot of highlight reel clips. Cover athlete for NHL 23. He's been viewed as one of the faces of the next generations of young stars. And obviously, their GM thinks he's going to be a dominant Jack Hughes type centerman in this league, and he can explode for a season that pushes beyond a point per game threshold, which I have to strongly agree with. And they'd line up that would line up with Evolving Hockey's highest probability projection of 8-year deal carrying an $8.4 million cap hit. But Stevens pointed out Verbeek has yet to hand out an 8-year term to anybody since taking over as general manager in Anaheim. He didn't do it for Troy Terry or Hampus Lindholm. Would he consider going maximum term for Zegras? And should he be considering the likely associated cap hit of the contract of that length? Mark, obviously Zegras has been, like we said, one of the best young stars here, and it's just crazy to me that he hasn't been extended quite yet. Like when we were looking into earlier today, I just must have slipped my mind. I just thought he would have been signed. But Mark, what do you think the right contract for Trevor Zegras would be?
I mean, if you can get him on an 8-year deal for that $8 to $9 million deal, I think you almost have to. He's the type of player, not only is he the first face of the Ducks franchise, he's their best player right now, he's the best young talent, but he's the type of guy that he pulls in so many highlight reels and stuff like that that it almost draws in fans from other teams to start tuning in Ducks games. And, he's a guy, if you're going to go to the game, you might see more Zegers jerseys than a Corey Perry or Getzlaf jersey at this point. He's putting butts in the seats, and I think at the end of the day, you need to do everything you can to keep him there for the next decade.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Like, I found myself watching Anaheim Ducks games last year late at night when there's nothing else to do, which I don't think I've ever done before. So, obviously, this guy has a bright future. But obviously, with the cap going up, it kind of affects these young guys because if they sign that lengthy of a deal and the cap goes up, they could be making more money, right? And that 8 years is a long term. So, I think where he's holding out a little bit here, I think we might be seeing him looking for maybe a 3-year bridge deal or something of that nature. What would you think of that for Trevor Zegras?
It's a situation where, like, I think any young star, you want to lock him up for the 8 years, especially with him being such a young guy. You kind of get him into his prime, and maybe right at that tail end of it, he's still in it a bit. So that's where you give him a big pay raise. But with the cap going up, yeah, if he wants a bridge deal, I mean, it's better for him, less better for the team, because, at the end of 3 years, if that cap shoots up a little bit, he might be asking for $4 million more than he's been asking for now. But like I said, with a young guy like that, a young star, he's putting the butts in the seats and hitting Michigan's on Montreal, which I do love to watch. I think it's the type of guy that you have to sign no matter how you get it done, you just do it.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree here as we get into our next player here, who is Alexis Lafreniere. Obviously, Lafreniere, a former number one overall draft pick, highly touted prospect, but has been struggling to find his way into the league through the first 3 years of his contract. Last year, with 39 points in 81 games. Year before with 31 points. And the Athletics here says that the Rangers just have $2 million in cap space, with Lafreniere the only notable player without a contract for this upcoming season. And obviously, considering the team's cap situation, they're looking at maybe a 2-year deal worth $2.6 million. A long-term contract, obviously, could come cheap as well, where he hasn't proven himself so far in the league. But I think that Lafreniere is probably going to look for a shorter term deal here, Mark, because obviously when you're a highly touted prospect like that, you don't want to sign 7 or 8 years for maybe $3 or $4 million when you could potentially pop off in the next couple of years and earn yourself some more money.
Yeah, no, it's such a weird situation with Laugh. I mean, you look at him coming out of the queue, he had one of the best seasons down there. His numbers were comparable to some of the great players that came in through the queue. But he hasn't really found his footing. And I know the Rangers have a bit of a situation where it seems like a lot of guys aren't really hitting their full potential on the team. So I could definitely see, him taking a short deal, maybe a year or two, just kind of like, okay, let me get out of this slump, let me get that bigger deal. And I mean, at the worst case for the Rangers, he has a good season, you can afford him, and you can trade him because I mean, he's still a guy with a ton of potential. He's oozing with potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was off the Rangers in a couple of years. But I think they do everything they can to get him in, just to get that value up a little bit more this year.
Yeah, definitely. He's not a guy you kind of want to let slip through the cracks either. With that type of potential, obviously coming out of the juniors and stuff like that. He was one of the best prospects. Everybody thought he was going to be the next big star in the NHL, which he is only 22 years of age. So you can't judge him as a bust yet because he still has all that potential still left in him. And I think, like they say in this article, I think a 2 to 3 year deal worth like 2.2, 2.5 would be a great addition to their team where they only have 2 million left in cap. And I think the problem with Lafreniere right now, I think, is just the New York Rangers lineup is just clogged with talent, and he's not getting that much ice time. I think if you put him on another team where he's getting a lot of ice time, Montreal, I think he would really explode. But we're gonna get into our next player here, who is Evan Bouchard. Another player who surprised me that was an RFA this year, just slipped my mind, I guess. But obviously, Evan Bouchard's coming off great playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers, 17 points in 6 games. This guy is definitely the defenseman of the future for the Edmonton Oilers. And as they go on to say here in this article, that obviously, like I just said, he had a breakout performance here in the playoffs last year, and he was the Oilers' power play was dominant and didn't skip a beat with Bouchard when he replaced Tyson Barrie after the trade deadline. And he said, they're saying that Bouchard could flirt with the 60-point plateau next season, which I don't think is out of the realm of out of the pocket or anything at all. Because I think when you have him there and he's playing maybe top or second pairing minutes with all the talent that's there in Edmonton, he could definitely put up 60 points. And obviously next year, with his performance in the playoffs, I think he's going to be quarterbacking that power play for sure. And the Oilers only have 3 million in cap space this year, so they say a long term deal worth like a 6 year deal would be about 5.36 million for Bouchard. But obviously Edmonton doesn't have that type of cap space, so they're gonna have to try to make something work here. I think we're kind of in the situation that Lafreniere is kind of in. Obviously Bouchard's proven himself to be a better player in the league than Lafreniere. But I think we're going to see maybe a 2 to 3 year bridge deal here until Edmonton gets that cap back. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, no, I definitely think they're going to do everything to keep him. It's you see the trend with a lot of these guys, minus the Ducks who do have a lot of cap space, but you look at the Rangers and the Oilers. There's not a lot of cap room in the NHL right now, which is why I do think the league's going to kind of push their way into getting as much cap as they can at this point. But a guy like Bouchard, I think you have to do everything to retain him. He's the type of guy where you put him out as your power play quarterback. He's just an amazing complementary piece on the power play for a guy like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman. But you get into the situation of the guy you can't let go. He's a young guy. He's going to be able to grow with this core they have. Even if he doesn't hit a season like Erik Karlsson would be doing with his offensive game, I mean, he's still a guy that's incredible. He has a good two-way game, and I'm surprised no one's offer sheet him yet at this point. That's my big thing. You see a couple teams with cap space. I know GMs don't really like doing it, but it gets to the point. If you have a guy like this just sitting there, why not just throw him a $5 million contract and make the Oilers work that out?
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree. They're kind of the situation that Carolina did with Katniemi, but like Evan Bouchard, obviously, like I said, is one of the best young defensemen in the league right now at only 23 years of age, looking for probably 60 points this year. I think it's crazy, like you said, it's crazy to me that nobody's offer sheeted him yet because this guy is the defenseman of the future, especially for the Oilers. So they need to lock him up soon before another team, puts out a crazy offer at him and they're forced, to play their hand. But we're going to get into our next person here, who is Shane Pinto for the Ottawa Senators. Obviously, Shane Pinto, last year was his best year there. He broke a breakout year, contract year. He seems to be a breakout year for most NHL players. But he had 35 points in 82 games. The third line center here for the Ottawa Senators. Obviously, he's great. He's a great centerman. Obviously, they're projecting him to get maybe a 2-year bridge deal again, worth only 1.78 million, which is a good deal in my opinion. I think when you have a guy like this as third line center, when you lock him up for 2 years for under 2 million, I think it's just going to be a great deal. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think the Sens are one of the dark horse teams where you're going to start seeing them push the playoffs like Detroit is. But with a guy like Pinto, I think, if you slide him in as your third line center, it's an incredible thing. He can, in the pinch, hop up into your top six. But a guy like that, you've seen him have a real big breakout year last year, and you almost want to just lock him up. If you can get him for a long term, I would do it. But I mean, the bridge deal, if he wants to bet on himself, you definitely just can't let a guy like this walk from the organization.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, he's a guy who definitely can jump up in the top six if need be due to injuries, anything like that. But I think if he gets the opportunity to play with some of these stars they have in Edmonton, I think his production's only going to go up, and that dollar amount's just going to go up at the end of the day. So I think for him, it's a great contract. Obviously, like you said, the Senators are one of my dark horse teams this year, and you want to be on that team. You want to be a part of that winning culture that the Ottawa Senators have been chasing after for a long time. So we're hoping. I'm pulling out hope, anyways, for you Ottawa Senators fans, because my grandfather is Ottawa Senators fan, so I just like to see him do well for him. But we're gonna get into our last player here, who is Morgan Frost of the Philadelphia Flyers. Morgan Frost, obviously, best year of his career last year again. We're seeing a kind of a trend here in contract years, but he had 46 points in 81 games down in Philly, and they're saying here right now, Frost is the last remaining unsigned player for Danny Briere and the Flyers, who have just under $3 million in cap space remaining. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're probably going to see another bridge deal here. They're saying around 2.5, but obviously, Morgan Frost is another great young centerman in the NHL. I think, Philly, they're kind of had a bit of a down year last year, and they're looking to bounce back this year. And I think adding a guy like Morgan Frost will definitely help them.
Yeah, no, I definitely think, it's a situation where Philly's they're at the start of a rebuild, and I think a guy like Frost, he's going to fit into this core perfectly. If you keep Carter Hart, he's around the same age, and then you have a guy like Konechny that fits in there perfectly too. So I think Philly's going to probably sign a bridge deal, see can he prove himself, let them kind of save a little bit of cap to take on some bad contracts to add a couple picks here and there. But if you can get him on a bridge deal from 2.5 to 3 million, I think it's perfect. I mean, if it gets to the point and someone throws you the world and more for him, you can always accept an offer because at that price, every team can afford him for the most part. So it's a guy, like I said, Philly's kind of this fun rebuilding team now. They don't really have a complete direction going. They're going to rebuild, and I think you just give the keys to the young guys, let them have fun, build this culture in Philly, and just see how it goes.
Definitely, I think I definitely agree with you there. Obviously, going into a rebuild kind of sucks to be a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers right now, but rebuilds always work out. It's the way of the NHL. You can't always have a good team. You got to have a few bad years to get back up to that winning culture. And like you said, I think Morgan Frost is the perfect fit to fit in with this young core and these young guys are going to have coming up. But Mark, I'd like to ask you this question: out of all the players we've talked about today, which player do you think is going to get an offer sheet thrown at him?
If I was a team offer sheeting someone, it really depends. Obviously, Zegras is the guy that everyone wants to go over. But the thing is, if you throw a sheet at him and you're looking at the 8, 9, $10 million range, then you're throwing so much draft compensation back to a team. I think if you look at a guy like Evan Bouchard and you can kind of just squeak enough over the cap that it kind of screws over the Oilers a bit, I think he's a guy you can slot right into your top four D pairing. You can get him to just take over your power play completely. And I think it'd be hard for the Sens to kind of start shedding a bit of cap just to sign him. So if I was making a bet, I would think it would be Evan Bouchard's most likely to get one.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to disagree with you there, but I'm gonna go off the board here, and I'm gonna take Alexis Lafreniere. I think, he's a great. He's obviously has that potential, and I think he hasn't had the chance to prove it in New York. And I think if he was thrown in on another team, or another team was to throw an offer sheet at him, say for $4 million or $5 million, I think that New York wouldn't be able to handle it, and they'd have to let him go. But obviously, I'd like to see him do well in the league. I think he was one of the best touted prospects we've had in the NHL, and I just want to see him pick it up, and hopefully he has a bounce back year. But we'd like to hear your guys' takes on all this down in the comment section below. Who were you surprised of that hasn't signed yet? What do you think they're going to sign for? And we want to hear your wild takes on offer sheets, because I know we talk about it a lot here. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like on the video. Make sure to hit subscribe. We're trying to hit 250 subscribers before the season starts, and we'd love to see that happen. We love all the support you guys have been giving us. Really pushes us to push our daily content, and we just want to say thank you to you guys. But I've been KC alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.